Welcome to my channel. This video is part 2 to the Christmas wreath using 6 rolls of 6-inch mesh. In this video I will add the sign. I will be making a bow out of 3 ribbons with some bells in the center. I will also be adding some ribbon spikes, and I will show you all how I do that. I will be attaching this gnome sign. I will be using these 3 rolls of ribbon. Now be careful on the sign. This side is thicker, so I might be able to staple it, but the other side no. I will be using some chipboard from this ribbon roll spool. I just tear that off and then I'm going to cut it up into small pieces, and hopefully it will be thick enough where the staples won't go through. And unfortunately they did go through just a little bit. That's the problem with these thin signs. You want to staple the chenille stem on the back, but it'll just go right through. So my suggestion is just to hot glue it on, but then to glue some chipboard on the back, just like I'm doing there, but just hot glue instead of stapling. Now I'm going to start my first layer of my bow, and I am measuring this out for you so you can see how long the tails and the loops are. I'm making the tails 6 inches, and then I'm going to measure out 6 inches for each loop. So you just want to pinch that together like that, but give the ribbon a twist before you make your next loop. That way your pattern is always on top. And then I'll measure out 6 inches again and make my second loop. And I will just pinch it in the center like that. So you have a loop on each side, give it a twist, and then measure out my second tail. Now if you need to clip that in the center or go ahead and tie it off and then cut it, that's fine. It can be a little difficult to cut the ribbon while you're holding on to it with one hand. That is just my first layer of the bow. And I like to tie them off all together. It makes a tighter bow, but if you need to tie off each ribbon and then make the next section, go ahead and do that until you get skilled at making bows. Do the best you can. Now on the second ribbon, I'm going up 2 inches. So I'm measuring out 8 inches for the tails and the loops. Just like the first bow, this bow has 2 tails and 2 loops. It's just a little bit bigger. On this last tail, you see me twisting it so it is going in the same direction as the first tail. You want to do that before you tie it off. You want to make sure your tails are going whichever direction you want them to. If you want one tail going down and one going up, then leave them like that. If not, you need to give it a twist to make sure it's going down in the same direction before you tie it off. And I'm going to put those 2 together and just clip them in the center so I don't have to hold on to them. And I'll move on to my last ribbon. And on this one I'm going 2 inches longer, so 10 inches on my tails and loops. And I will do 4 loops on this one because I want this bow even bigger. Don't forget to subscribe, tap the bell for notifications, comment. Please be kind with your comments. Like and share if you find this video helpful. Now I want to add these bells to the center of the bow, and I'm going to do 3 bells together. So it's going to be you know, a nice little focal point there in the center. So you just want to run those through a chenille stem and get them as close together as you can. But I'm going to use another chenille stem to tie off the bows, because with having 3 bells on that one, it's going to make it difficult to tie the bow tightly. And you want that center of the bow tied as tightly as you can to make a good bow. Plus you don't want any gaps in there, or you want it to be loose, because then the tails or the loops could come loose. So you don't want that. You want it as tight as possible. So you see I'm going ahead and putting those on one chenille stem, and then I'm going to tie off the bow with the separate chenille stem, just for security's sake. And again, you want to make that as tight as possible. Wrap it around the center, flip it over and just pull as tight as you can, and then give it a couple of twists. And then you can add your bells, and then I will tie off or I will wrap the ends of the chenille stems together. That way I only have 2 chenille stems sticking out on the bow to attach to the wreath instead of 4. You want to be sure and clean up your ribbon ends. You can simply fold them under, cut a V shape, or cut it at a slant. The only thing about folding them under is a lot of times they'll still come undone. So if you add a little hot glue, it will make it stay. But you want to be careful about how much hot glue and where you put the hot glue so it doesn't look like it's been glued down. And I'm just adding it where the wires are, so on the ends. And I'll show a little close-up there so you can see where it's glued together and where it's not. Check out the description for lots of useful links to other playlists. I will try to put a timeline, a storyboard in there so you can skip ahead to different parts of the video that you want to watch, so you don't have to watch the stuff you don't want to watch. If you have a Pinterest page and you're uploading some of your designs, put that in the comment. I would love to see what you've come up with. So share that with us, share the name of your page or a link to it, and I will go check that out. If you have any questions, if there's something I'm not explaining well, or you don't understand, or I'm not showing, just comment and I will get back to you within a day and try to help you with whatever problem you're having. How cute is that? Just adding 3 bells made it so adorable. You could do an ornament, you could do so many different things. You could do floral picks, add a little berries, some greenery, whatever you wanted to do. Just dress up your bow however you want. Now I'm going to hot glue the chenille stems down on the sign. I'm going to do one on every corner. You want to take a little piece of chipboard and hot glue that on top of the chenille stem for extra security so it'll stay on there. And you can add more hot glue over the top of the chenille stem, or I'm going to take some small pieces of vinyl, and they're just scrap pieces of vinyl I have left over, and I'm just cutting little rectangular shapes and putting that over that. So it'll just help secure it. Keep that chenille stem on there, plus it makes it look better when you see it from behind. And I'm just adding hot glue around the edges. I just want to make sure it stays on there. Figure out where you want your sign and then start running your chenille stems between the mesh. You don't want to run the chenille stem through the mesh. It's too difficult and you can mess up the mesh. So run it around it, between it, however you can, and pull it as snug as you want. You don't want to leave it too loose, but if you make it too tight, it'll smash everything down. So I like to tighten up a couple of them first and make sure it's where I want it and it's as snug as I want it, and then finish tightening them up. Now I'm going to put my bow over towards the corner, the right hand upper corner. And when you put the bow on top of the mesh, you want to go over a grouping. So one side of your chenille stem should go on one side of the grouping, and the other chenille stem should go on the other side of the grouping. You know, where your grouping of mesh is attached in the center. You want to put the bow on top of that, because if you put the bow between a grouping of mesh, it'll sink down into the wreath. So you want it kind of on top, unless that's what you want. But if you're wanting it like on top like this, you want to put it on top of a mesh grouping. That way it won't sink in. And again, pull it as snug as you want and give it a couple of twists and look at it, make sure it's where you want it, and then you can tighten it up the rest of the way. Make sure you hide those chenille stems so you don't want them sticking out everywhere. You just want to move, if you've got tails like this one, you want to move them around. You can twist the bow to the left, you can twist it to the right, however you want to make it work. If you pull on the tails like I'm doing here, you can see it gives them a nice little curve. So I like to do that with the bows. It gives it that nice natural little curve, and it just makes them look so much better. I decided to go ahead and cut V-shapes in the bottom of these ribbons. And the reason why I'm going up so high is because where it was creased on the ribbon spool, you can still see that, and so I didn't like that. I wanted to cut that off. If you have extra ribbon, you can make ribbon spikes. I'm cutting these at 12 inches long. Now it depends on how thick or deep your wreath is on how long you need to cut these. If your wreath is only like 4 inches deep, you can cut these at like 8 or 10 inches. So it really just depends. So you can cut one or just kind of measure it out and then pinch it in the middle and put it into the wreath and see if they're sticking out long enough, if you need to see how long you want to cut them. 12 inches is the standard, but I've noticed that if I'm making a wreath that's skinnier or not as deep or thick, then you can get away with shorter ones. You want to cut V-shapes on the ends of both of them and then fold them in half. You can stack them on top of each other, fold them in half, pinch the center and attach a chenille stem. Or if you have chenille stems already on the wreath, you can just go ahead and use those to attach them. Or you can crisscross these in like an X shape and then pinch them in the middle and attach them that way. It doesn't matter, whichever way you prefer to do it, just pull them apart so they're going in different directions, so it's like north, south, east, and west. And as you saw there, I am attaching this on top of a mesh grouping. So right there in the middle where the grouping was attached, where it was secured, that's where I'm attaching this on top of it. I want it sticking out. I don't want it sunken into the wreath. I'm using 3 ribbons. I'm going to mix up each time I make a little set of ribbon spikes. So this one I'm using the Holly Berries and the Merry Christmas. And then the next one I'll do 2 different ones. And I want to make sure when I attach these that I don't have 2 of the same next to each other, so I keep changing it up each one. And a third grouping of ribbon spikes. You see I used the candy cane and the Merry Christmas on this one. And I'm going to do a grouping of 3 bells there on the bottom where there's a little space where nothing else is, right on the corner of that sign. Just put those on a chenille stem, get them as close together, twist them around so they're all grouped together. And then I'm going to put them on top of a grouping just like I did the ribbon spikes and the bow, so they're not sunken into the wreath. I'm going to add a ribbon hanger on this, so I'm just threading it through the wreath form, and I'm going from the side, the little bar or wire that goes down. I'm not running it on the outer wire, I'm running it on the inner wire that goes up and down. I just want to make sure it's long enough that it comes up over the wreath, and then I will glue it together to make sure it's nice and secure. After the glue dries, pull on it so that part is on the bottom or behind the wreath so it doesn't show. And I did do one more thing, no, two more things to this wreath after I videoed. I added a lighted ornament there. I just attached that with a chenille stem. The only thing is I needed to leave about an inch, because the way you turn it on is right there at the top where it's attached to the chenille stem, so I had to leave enough room to turn it on. So there's about an inch that you can see of the chenille stem for that reason. And then I had to cover up those staples on the gnome, so I used those white craft pom-poms, and I just cut them up and I hot glued them all over his face there. I could show you a close-up there. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe, tap the bell for notifications, share, like, comment, be nice with your comments, and be nice to others. Happy holidays, everybody, and be safe.